In early May 1945, after the death of Hitler, Germany was on the brink of collapse, with the Light armies converging from the west and the Red Army from the east rapidly defeating the German army. Even though Germany was near its limits, some troops continued fighting for their country in support of the totalitarian regime that ruled the nation for 12 years. American troops led by Lieutenant John Lee, a number of Wehrmacht soldiers led by Major Josef Gangl, and recently freed French prisoners of war defended Castle Itter against an attacking force from a SS division. This battle would become one of the last in the European theatre of World War II and one of the strangest, remarking a time when the German and American joined sides during the war. Itter Castle is a small castle on a hill near the village of Itter in Austria. After the 1938 Anschluss, the German government officially leased the castle in late 1940 from its owner, Franz Gruner. The castle was seized from Gruner by SS Lieutenant General Oswald Pohl under the orders of Heinrich Himmler on February 7, 1943. The transformation of the castle into a prison was completed by April 25, 1943, and the facility was placed under the administration of the Dachau concentration camp. The prison was established to contain high-profile French prisoners valuable to the Reich. Notable prisoners included tennis player Jean Barotra, former Prime Ministers Edouard Daladier and Paul Reynaud, former Commanders-in-Chief Maxime Weygand and Maurice Gamelin, Charles de Gaulle's elder sister Marie-Agnes Caillard, right-wing leader and closet French resistance member François de la Roque, and trade union leader Leon Juhaus. Besides the VIP prisoners, the castle held a number of Eastern European prisoners detached from Dachau, who were used for maintenance and other menial work. On May 3, 1945, Zvonimir Kukovic, an imprisoned Yugoslav communist resistance member from Croatia who worked as a handyman at the prison, left the castle under the pretext of performing an errand for the prison's commander, Sebastian Wimmer. Kukovic carried with him a letter in English seeking Allied assistance, which he was to give to the first American he encountered. The town of Wergel was 8 kilometers down the mountains, but was still occupied by German troops. Kukovic instead pressed on up the Inn River Valley towards Innsbruck, 64 kilometers distant. Late that evening, he reached the outskirts of the city and encountered an advance party of the 409th Infantry Regiment of the American 103rd Infantry Division of the US 6th Corps and informed them of the castle's prisoners. At dawn, a heavily armored rescue was mounted, but was stopped by heavy shelling just past Jenbach around halfway to Itter, then recalled by superiors for encroaching into territory of the US 36th Division to the east. Only 2 jeeps of auxiliary personnel continued. When Kukovic failed to return, and the former commandant of Dachau, Edred Weider, died in suspicious circumstances at the castle on 2 May, Wimmer feared for his own life and abandoned his post. The SS Totenkopf abandoned guards left the castle soon after, and the prisoners took control of the castle and armed themselves with the weapons that remained. However, they feared an attack by any roaming parties of SS men still loyal to the Nazi regime. Failing to learn of the result of Kukovic's effort, prison leaders accepted the offer of its Czech cook, Andreas Krobot, to bicycle to Wergel midday on 4th May in hopes of reaching help there. Armed with a similar note, he succeeded in contacting Austrian resistance in Wergel, which had recently been abandoned by Wehrmacht forces but reoccupied by roaming Waffen-SS troops. He was taken to Major Josef Gangl, commander of the remains of a unit of Wehrmacht soldiers who had defied an order to retreat and instead thrown in with the local resistance, led by Rupert Hagleitner. Gangl sought to maintain his unit's position in the town to protect local residents from SS reprisals. Nazi loyalists would shoot at any window displaying either a white flag or an Austrian flag and would summarily execute males as possible deserters. Gangl's hopes were pinned on the Americans reaching Wergel promptly so he could surrender to them. Instead, he would now have to approach them under a white flag to ask for their help. Around the same time, a reconnaissance unit of 4 Sherman tanks of the 23rd Tank Battalion, 12th Armored Division of the AS 21st Corps, under the command of Lieutenant Lee, had reached Kufstein, Austria, 13 kilometers to the north. There, in the town square, it idled while waiting for the 12th to be relieved by the 36th Infantry Division. Asked to provide relief by Gangl, Lee did not hesitate, volunteering to lead the rescue mission and immediately earning permission from his headquarters. After a personal reconnaissance of the castle with Gangl and Haglitner in the Major's Belvergen, Lee left 2 of his tanks behind, but requisitioned 5 more and supporting infantry from the recently arrived 142nd Infantry Regiment of the 36th. En route, Lee was forced to send the reinforcements back when a bridge proved too flimsy for the entire column to cross once, let alone twice. Leaving one of his tanks behind to guard it, he set back off, accompanied only by 14 American soldiers, Gangl, and a driver, and a truck carrying 10 former German artillerymen. 6 kilometers from the castle, they defeated a party of SS troops that had been attempting to set up a roadblock. Meanwhile, the French prisoners had asked an SS officer, Kurt Siegfried Schrader, whom they had befriended in Itter during his convalescence from wounds and was living locally, to take charge of their defense. When Lee arrived at the castle, prisoners greeted the rescuing force warmly, but were disappointed at its small size. Lee placed the men under his command in defensive positions around the castle and positioned his Sherman tank, Besodden Jenny, at the main entrance. Shortly after the arrival of the reinforcements, a force of 100 to 150 Waffen SS soldiers led by Jörg Bommen, who had been occupying some hills near the town, decided to launch an attack. Lee had ordered the French prisoners to hide, but they remained outside and fought alongside the American and Wehrmacht soldiers. Throughout the night, the defenders were harried by a reconnaissance force sent to assess their strength and probe the fortress for weaknesses. Before the main assault began, Gangl was able to phone Alois Mehr, the Austrian resistance leader in Wörgl, and ask for reinforcements. Only 2 more German soldiers under his command and a teenage Austrian resistance member, Hans Wald, could be spared, and they quickly drove to the castle. In the morning of 5 May, the attack began. The Sherman tank provided machine gun fire support until it was destroyed by German fire from an 88mm gun. It was occupied at the time only by a radio man seeking to repair the tank's faulty radio. He escaped without injury. Meanwhile, by early afternoon, word had finally reached the 142nd of the desperation of the defenders' plight, and a relief force was dispatched. Aware that he had been unable to give the 142nd complete information on the enemy and its disposition before communications had been severed, Lee accepted Tenester Barotra's offer to vault the castle wall and run the gauntlet of SS strongpoints and ambushes to deliver it. The Tenester was recognized by René Levesque, a French-Canadian reporter embedded with the 142nd and later Premier of Quebec. Barotra asked for an American military uniform, then joined the force as it made haste to reach the prison before its defenders fired their last rounds of ammunition. The relief force arrived around 4 p.m. and the SS were promptly defeated. Some 100 SS prisoners were reportedly taken. The French prisoners were evacuated towards France that evening, reaching Paris on 10 May. For his service defending the castle, Lee was promoted to captain and received the Distinguished Service Cross. He died in 1973. Gangl died during the battle from a 7.92 57mm Mauser round, while trying to move former French Prime Minister Paul Reynaud out of harm's way, and was honoured as an Austrian national hero. A street in Wörgl was named after him. He was the sole defender to die during the battle, though 4 others were wounded. Popular accounts of the battle have dubbed it the strangest battle of World War II. The battle was fought 5 days after Adolf Hitler had committed suicide and only 2 days before the signing of Germany's unconditional surrender.